Welcome to the LivXplore Podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe. Hello, everyone. I'm Sean Payne, owner and founder of LivXplore Real Estate and Lifestyle. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today we have with us Brad Baker of SOMO Village and our founding agent, Isaiah Chass, joining us. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
So Isaiah and I have been talking about this podcast for a couple of months at least. We've really wanted to have you on here. So again, thank you so much. Part of it because it's such a cool project that way. It seems like so much is going on there, and how we talked about a little bit a few moments ago, how it's really evolved. So could you kind of just tell us like how it originated and
Absolutely.
where we're at now?
I was actually the CEO of a company called Cotting Enterprises. And Cotting was a shopping center developer and owner and manager. And, I started looking at the horizon and obviously at that time, almost 20 years ago, Amazon was coming onto the scene and we were thinking there's going to be a lot of competition in the mall business. And so we thought, how could we diversify our portfolio? So Hewlett-Packard at the time was selling off some excess real estate, and we ended up purchasing it, and then developing a strategy around that. And really, what we wanted to do is build a sustainable mixed-use community. And what I mean by that is a community where people can live, work, play. Enjoy good food and accessible transportation. There was a lot of good infrastructure in place. They ended up putting a train station close to the project. Hewlett-Packard had spent a lot of money, had actually built a lot of roads and schools and things in the neighborhood. So we liked that. We liked the fact that it was close to Sonoma State University. And it was a big project, about 175 acres. And about 600,000 square feet of building. So then, what to do with it? It was basically excess real estate to Hewlett-Packard, so there was not a lot going on. It was kind of a strange scene that you'd go there, and obviously it had a lot of people there. There was around 3,000 people that had worked there at one point. But there was no one there.
So kind of a ghost
at
town.
The time. It was a ghost town.
What year was this? I'm sorry.
This was in 2005.
2005
is when we purchased it. And so then, it was actually interesting. Hewlett-Packard asked at the time, they were concerned about what was going to happen to the property, and so it had come down to 4 bidders, and so they asked, what are you going to do with this? So I basically wrote a small essay on my vision, which was to create this sustainable mixed-use community. And really that vision is still in place today. We've been operating it more or less as a business park up to this point. So we have about 50 different businesses there. We also have different community events, concerts. We actually have a high school there, so we have high school graduation coming up. We have live theater. We actually, I don't know if any of you guys drink beer, but last weekend we had the festival.
The festival.
The festival, Fresh Beer Festival. So we do things like that, farmers markets, wine and food, all of those kind of things that bring community together.
I've even done bike races there.
We've done bike races there. We have MS has their Waves to Wine bike ride coming up in September. If you guys are interested in joining that, please let me know. So we've had 10Ks, Girls on the Run type events there, and so trying to move beyond just the business park, incorporating and creating that community. And now we're actually in a great position. We are just finishing up our infrastructure for our first phase of the residential. So that's around 148 lots. And we will start building those in probably August of this year.
Very cool, very cool. Was the housing component always kind of a part of the original vision, or did it evolve?
It was. It was always part. So we always wanted to be able to offer someone a lifestyle where they didn't necessarily have to get in their car, where they could either ride their bike or walk to, take their kids to school or daycare or.
So sort of like the 15-minute village concept, something like
that. 5 minute village. 5 minute lifestyle.
Okay.
So you can kind of walk to your day-to-day necessities, whether that's food or your job. We have a great co-working space that we started last year. So you wouldn't necessarily. We're not under the assumption people won't have cars. They'll still have cars, but you won't necessarily have to get in your car and drive every day. Maybe it's once a week or something like that.
Right.
So trying to create that lifestyle, which basically existed for hundreds of or even thousands of years in Europe and even in the early United States.
Exactly.
It was really started in the 50s that the communities were really designed around the automobile.
Right.
So we're kind of taking it back to that original concept of a city where people could walk, where people know their neighbors, where they feel that they're part of a community.
Yeah. That story is really cool. I'll come back to it in a second for a reason. But what you just talked about, I mean, that community, that's really where now I think, city planners and developers have kind of caught on a little bit. And that's really where the direction that we're going that way. So I think that's really important because it solves so many of our community issues that way. Traffic, I mean, just getting out and being more active and things of that nature. And that's kind of our branding, LivXplore, is live and explore your community that way.
Right.
But what I kind of find interesting is 2005, you were ahead of the ballgame. So this wasn't a common, wouldn't have been, I mean, it was more of just a conceptual, I would say, at that point within real estate. There weren't really a lot of projects.
There were a few, but not many. Orrin Thiessen had been working on Windsor, Windsor Town Green at the time. And I knew Orrin, and he, was kind enough to mentor me and kind of show me what he was doing. And so there were some inspirations around, but it certainly wasn't a common thing. And, I think it still isn't necessarily. I think
there's pushback, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the home builders, they have done things a certain way.
Right.
In a certain kind of, the core developments and roads that really don't go anywhere.
Right.
And they've done well with that.
Sure.
So it's, I think, going outside of that box a lot of times is risky and uncomfortable for people. But I think the consumer really wants that.
Right.
So I think there's a big built-up demand for that sort of thing, but not a lot of product.
No, that's kind of where I was going from. I kind of feel that you coming from a different sector of real estate and not being just in single family homes and that maybe you took a little bit of different approach that allowed you to evaluate this property a little bit differently, because I could see most developers at that time. Maybe even just knocking down the buildings that you use to put up more housing that way, right? So the concept of community in that way would have just been so foreign. So I can't help but think that you coming from the outside in was probably how this came about, because if you were already there, or someone from the inside looking around would just be like, hey, how many homes can I put up here that way? So I think that's really cool, because again, that's the trend that we've seen. So Windsor, the town green area, that was somewhat of an influence that way and inspiration.
Absolutely.
And so you came and you kind of looked at this place and said, wait a second, we might have something here that we can build off that way. Is that?
Yeah, we actually used the same planners that Orrin had used, and they were all about that kind of new urbanism is the term, and the transect zones kind of, again, designing like older cities were designed, where it's kind of the more dense in the middle, where you have more of your commercial buildings, your higher density, and then it kind of flattens out as you go out from the center.
Right.
So we're still using that concept.
Yeah, I always say this in my family's from Norway. My mom's from Norway,
okay.
so I spent a lot of time there, and so this was kind of my experience growing up. And then coming over here was like, why don't we do this over here more? And so like seeing this, it's really cool to see these type of projects come around that way. Can you talk about like some of the things? So 2005. Then the foreclosure crisis came and we had the downturn. How did that affect you, and how did you get through that, and how did that change things?
That's a great question. So we bought the property thinking that it was kind of a short-term, maybe a flip type situation.
Right.
So we had to extend our loan and extend our loan and extend our loan, and then finally that particular bank kicked us out of the bank, and we had to find a new bank. And then Wells Fargo came and gave us a loan. So we actually got our entitlements to build our vision in 2010.
Okay.
But there was no financing. The property was basically, at the time, if you spend a bunch of money to put in all the infrastructure, when you were done with that, it would actually be worth less than the money you spent for all of that infrastructure. So it just did not pencil out until probably 2016, something like that.
Okay.
At the time, we were part of this other organization, Cotton Enterprises, and the founder, Hugh Cotton, was an elderly gentleman at the time, and he's actually was my stepfather, wonderful guy.
Okay.
But he was almost 90 years old. He wasn't willing to take on a 20-year project. We had another partner who's in his 80s, and so I basically bought out the SOMO Village out of Cotton Enterprises, and we started our own company called the SOMO Group at that time.
I see.
At that time, because of that, we were highly leveraged and not in a position to move forward. So over the last 7 years, we've been getting into a position where we had the financial wherewithal to move forward, and we're in that position now, and we're, like I say, just on the verge of going forward on this first phase. Of the residential.
That's great. That's great. When you, I mean, this is again like somewhat kind of a visionary project for this area. Did you get any pushback, or did people say like, I don't get it, or this is crazy, or like
oh yeah,
I
remember the first time I broached the idea and shared it with the city council. I got a lot of pushback. I said, I want narrower, more walkable streets, and they're like, why would you want to do that? Don't you like wide streets? And I was like, I don't think you get the concept. Narrow streets are easier to cross, and we have bulb outs at all the intersections, so it's really easy. It's interesting. I'm fortunate to travel around, different countries and different parts of the world, and one of the things I notice pretty much everywhere I go is the infrastructure is really not very good. I mean, it's good in downtowns, most nice downtowns, but you get out of the real central part of the town, the infrastructure is really bad. It's the sidewalks, sometimes they start and then they stop, and you're kind of left there with no sidewalk, and there's tree roots growing, and there's upheaval in the concrete, and so it's really nice. I really feel great that all of our infrastructure is ADA. It's very user friendly, and we're putting in a lot of great open space. So we have a lot of parks. And kind of how it's evolved is we've always embraced a concept called one planet living. Mm-hmm. And one planet really exemplifies that 5-minute lifestyle. So, but it's more than, say, an energy efficient building. Mm-hmm. So it has 10 principles, and it's everything from, zero net energy to zero waste, but also incorporates things like health and happiness and equity and fair trade. Mm-hmm. We've taken it really beyond that, and I don't know. We're kind of joking around with a new concept name. I don't know if you're watching this TV show Succession.
I've heard of it, but
yeah.
no,
So
no.
it's kind of this whole offtake on the Murdoch family, and their new concept is called Living Plus.
Okay.
And so our company, the home building company, is called SOMO Living. So now we're thinking, hey, maybe we call it SOMO Living Plus.
Sure.
And the plus is they're trying to like promise this longer lifespan. You move into their community and you live longer. And although that in this case is kind of, it doesn't seem to be really true. In SOMO's case, I think we actually we are striving for that. So
right.
How we're doing that is we're creating what we call an agrihood. And an agrihood is basically a community based around agriculture.
Okay.
So we have a 25-acre commercial farm that we're creating. So on that farm, we'll have vegetables, we'll have fruit trees, we'll have nut trees, we'll have grains, and there's a Harvard study that talked about what are the keys to longevity, and that's number one. Number one is having that healthy diet. So foods that are fresh fruits and vegetables, fruits that are high in omega-3s.
Right.
And so we're going to create all of that and have it basically right there. So our corner grocery store will be a farm stand. And so an automated farm stand, 24 hours a day. You feel hungry, you want to have a juice or a nice meal, you go down to the farm stand, you pick out what you want, and you'll be able to have a nice meal.
That's incredible. Why did I not know about that?
So we're just kind of kicking.
I'm sorry. As you're talking, I'm like going through all my notes and like school. I'm like, I did not pick that up. Where is that? Like, did you know about this?
I didn't.
Like, that's a really cool project.
Well, thank you. It's kind of interesting because we've always had this concept, but then we never really had this idea of the farm.
Right.
And then about 2 years ago, I thought the farm is everything. Like without the good food, you can do a lot of things, but you're not really going to create the community that we had envisioned. And so we've created this farm called Headwaters Farm. Interestingly enough, our property is the headwaters for both the Petaluma Basin and Laguna de Santa Rosa.
Right.
So we're right on the border.
Yep.
So we called it Headwaters Farm. And we're going to start out with 25 acres. And it will also, in addition to having all of these, this fresh produce, we'll have a barn, and we envision things like having a pizza oven. So one of the things we're going to do is grow heritage wheat. So grow the wheat, grind it into flour, and then make pizzas, and invite the community on say Fridays to have fresh pizza. We'll actually have fresh beer as well. We have a tap room that's coming, Old Kaz. I don't know if you know Old Kaz, but a couple great guys. And so, having those meals together and breaking bread and bringing that community together, and then people can walk there, right? They don't have to drive. They can walk there. They can walk back. And so, even though we've had this idea, we never really had figured out the farm piece. And now, to me, the farm piece is really the biggest part of the community.
That's absolutely amazing. Yeah, I could see that just... One, I think it's really cool that someone would take it. Again, like most developers would come in and say 25 acres. I mean, I can slam a lot more homes in there, right?
I mean, look at most developments in Rohnert Park, for that matter.
Yeah,
I mean, University District.
I mean, look at that.
How many homes you can fit there.
So I mean, what a really cool decision to come in and do that. And why, the biggest thing Rohnert Park lacks too is a sense of community. I mean,
I think you're right.
Talk about I mean, poor central planning or lack of central planning that way. I mean, that's like, you have A, B, C, D, you have all these. You couldn't have done a more job of kind of separating everyone, right?
Yeah.
So this I've heard that this is going to be a catalyst for the community there. Now I have a better understanding of how that definitely could change and become more of a hub and a downtown, because that's what they're missing that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but that is absolutely. I'm really looking forward to watching watching that come about that way. That's
thank you.
That's real. I mean, what a great idea that way.
An incredible project that, I mean, there's a lot of the 5-minute village and 15-minute village, I think, are very topical now.
Yeah.
A project from inception, I mean, 15 years ago that includes all that is, like you said, so ahead of its time.
way ahead of the time. I mean, I've heard about the 20-minute village, the 15-minute village. Now we have the 5-minute. What a really cool concept that way. So let's dive into it a little bit more. Do you want to jump into the co-working stuff that way, or let's talk a little bit about that. So, you mentioned that you currently are 65% at occupancy. Is that right, or did I get my numbers?
Yeah,
right? Okay.
We opened it in October.
Okay.
We had a space that we looked at a couple of spaces. I had actually done something similar 15 years ago, and that space actually ended up turning into a school. Uh-huh. So we learned, the things that people want and the things that people don't want, and we found that what people want, for the most part, is they want an individual office where they could come in, they could shut the door, they could have some privacy, but then also have nice common areas. So beautiful kitchen, nice outdoor deck, and again, kind of with we have several themes in there, which are all part of the community. One is art. So we have a lot of beautiful art on the walls. We have public art around the community. Some of that art is actually made out of waste. So in this particular project, we had to do some demolition. So we took some of that, the steel studs and some of the waste materials, and we created some beautiful quail. Huh. So we have 12-foot tall quail made out of basically waste products.
That's really cool.
Another one is aesthetic. So we wanted to have a really nice aesthetic. We actually get a lot of compliments. Mm-hmm. Someone the other day, we brought in some yoga practitioners, and they were like blown away. They're like, "Oh man, this is something that you would maybe see in San Francisco."
Right.
So kind of that really, class AA plus aesthetic. And then health and happiness. So we have things like we have a meditation room. We have an exercise room. We have a massage room where people can come in and get, massage treatments or acupuncture or Reiki. And so we're truly trying to differentiate ourselves around kind of that healthy lifestyle. So like we want to do in the whole community, we're doing that with the co-working space as well. So we have about 70 individual offices, and we're, like you mentioned, we're about 65% full. We actually thought it would take us a year to get to 50%. And so we're, at 65% in we're a little over like 7 or 8 months. So we're very, very happy with the results, and we think it's the best co-working facility really north of San Francisco.
Right.
I mean, just from the wellness aspect of it, I haven't heard of any other co-work spaces that incorporate that, and that increases productivity, happiness. I mean, so many aspects of someone's life in their work setting. Yeah,
I think a couple of them are copying us.
Right.
It's interesting. We saw their market and we're like, I wonder where they got those ideas.
Right. Well, I think that's going to happen quite a bit from what you're describing. I think you're going to see.
Yeah, that's the greatest flattery, right? Is imitation. So
didn't you? When I toured it, it was just, I think, getting close to being open. And you mentioned you looked at like 30 or 40 different co-work spaces, trying to get amazing ideas from everyone.
Yeah, a lot in San Francisco, Marin, LA, Bend, Oregon, Portland, Oregon. So we really did our homework and tried to pick the best of each spot. Like each one would have something that we really liked, and we tried to take those best of class and incorporate it into our space.
Sure. And I think you also mentioned you have outdoor parking for bicycles, so if people want to ride their bike there, or you had lockers of some sorts that people could bring.
Yeah, we have indoor and outdoor. Mm-hmm. I actually was in Amsterdam a couple of months ago for spring break with my kids. And I don't know if you've been to Amsterdam. You've probably been to Amsterdam, right? And the bike parking there is insane.
Right.
Where you go to the train station, or you actually was in the north part of Amsterdam, and it's kind of it's an old section. The whole city is 700 years old, but being redeveloped, the north part of the town, and each apartment building or even the residence, they all had this really distinct bike parking. So we want to make it easy. We want to make it safe for people, and have indoor parking, have indoor storage facilities, and make that 5-minute lifestyle not like, it's a burden. It's something
super easy.
Yeah, super easy, super seamless, and try and create that lifestyle for people.
That's really cool. I'm assuming that's the type of people you're filling up quickly, especially in. I don't really know much about the co-working space, but the commercial sector is certainly bumping around a little bit. For filling up now is really incredible. What type of people are interested in it? What type of people are you attracting that way?
It's interesting. I was actually touring a friend through there yesterday, and Sonoma County is probably not the most diverse place in the world, but we have a really diverse group of people in there. So we have everything from nonprofits. We have a group of local Pomo Native American people that have a really great nonprofit. We have real estate people. We have technology companies. We have a company that actually takes waste plastic and turns it into fuel, into gasoline, into diesel.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We have another company that takes salt water or contaminated water and turns it into drinking water. We have different therapists and coaches. So really a really diverse group of people. So and it's interesting because we're attracting a lot of people from San Francisco and even Silicon Valley, and again they come here and their expectations aren't necessarily very high, and then they come in and they go, oh my gosh, we didn't think this existed in Rohnert Park or Sonoma County. And
well,
so
it didn't.
it did,
Yeah.
right? And that was kind of the idea is provides people that aesthetic that they would used to be seeing in New York or LA or San Francisco.
Right. So kind of let's jump back over into the housing side. So are these people that are currently there, are they signing up for getting on the housing list, like wanting to live there as well? How is that?
It's a great question. So we've had, a list for years. We've been talking about this housing maybe way too long, probably over-promising and under-delivering in a lot of ways. But we've had a list of over 3,000 people. Wow. But, we're just now to the point where we're going to be able to get our white paper from the state of California where we could actually take deposits. So that's just finishing up now.
I see. Okay.
So the grand opening, ribbon cutting will probably be around August, and then we'll actually be able to take reservations.
Oh, that's awesome.
I would anticipate that probably a lot of people within the co-work space would certainly want to live close by, and vice versa, that would want to live in the housing aspect would want to be part of the co-work space.
Right. Yeah, we think so. And then companies, we have other companies like Traditional Medicinal Teas, Morton Bassett Spices, and actually probably the biggest draw, I think, will be Credo High School. A lot of these people that go to Credo High School, I don't know if you know anything about Credo High School, but it's a terrific school, always ranked one of the top in Sonoma County.
Yep.
And people move their families. There's been people that have moved from New Jersey to have their kids go to Credo High School.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I think, Credo High School, we would love to have an elementary school. We're actually putting in a daycare. So think about it. You could live there. You could walk your kids to daycare. You could walk them to elementary school. You could walk, or they could walk themselves to high school, and again, never have to you look now, and most people are driven to school.
Right.
How nice would it be if you could just walk to school?
Right.
And a lot of people get to do that because they have a neighborhood school, but a lot of people don't, right? Because they either don't like their neighborhood school, or they don't live close to their neighborhood school and they have to drive. So we think that could be a real big demand for the housing, is people that are parents of the kids that go to the schools there.
Right. Yeah, talking about Credo a little bit, I believe now Credo's hiring coaches and getting some sports programs in place that way. I'm a big I love basketball, so I've played and coached basketball for years, and I've coached quite a few kids that now are at Credo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I believe you've hired a pretty well respectable coach that has been doing a pretty good job locally.
Oh, cool.
That way, so yeah, I hear more and more about Credo from the kids that I'm around that way. So
nice.
So yeah, that's good. That's good that way. So
yeah, and we haven't really even talked about that. If someone needs to get farther away, the SMART train is, borderline walking distance. It's
absolutely.
rideable.
It's about a mile away, half mile to the closest part of the project. But actually, I walk a lot in the morning, so I see all the kids. And a lot of kids come from Petaluma.
Uh-huh.
They come from Novato. They take the train, and then they walk to school. And then other kids will come from Santa Rosa or Windsor. Actually, my son used to take the train. He was living in Windsor with his mom for a while, and he'd take the train and then walk to school. So, like to see more of that, for sure.
Right.
But it's certainly an option.
That's great.
Sure.
That's great.
Do you want to talk a little bit about, obviously, the green energy and sustainability? I know you have, tons of solar panels, zero net electric.
Right.
Jump into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was one of the first things we did. How can you create this sustainable community? What are the things that we could do? So we actually have, we measured 11.5 acres of solar panels. I think it's around 12,000 solar panels.
Cow.
So all of our roofs are covered with solar panels. We actually have a battery backup as well. And the great thing is, actually, as you guys know, in the state of California with Title 24, basically every house has to be solar powered.
Right.
Every house has to be very energy efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, 15, 18 years ago, that wasn't the norm, but luckily that is the norm now. Mm-hmm. So, we'll do that and more. We use a lot of reclaimed products, whether it's wood from Heritage Salvage here in Petaluma. We've actually made a lot of our own furniture out of wood like that. We've actually made furniture out of things like, we had some redwood trees. They got it.
Oh, really?
They got a disease, and we had to cut them down. So we made a bunch of furniture. Actually, a guy at Credo High School, I think it's a wood shop
that's really
teacher.
Cool.
He made a bunch of benches. So now we put benches in shady areas and around our public art, so people can come and sit. And every time I see somebody sitting on one of those benches, it really, warms my heart. It's like, great, that was the intention.
Right.
So we try and source, reclaimed materials that don't off gas, that low VOC and things like that. So when we look at sustainability, it's certainly about energy efficiency, but it's really about more than that, providing things that are healthy, that come from great sources. We have what looks like a wood product, but it's actually made out of bamboo. So there's a lot of materials now that you could use that are easily sourced, that are a lot better than I think the products that have been used over the last 50 years.
That's cool. I know it's so easy for a developer now to be green and throw up a few solar panels and a gray water system, but you've certainly gone well beyond that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really cool project.
Yeah.
So,
I'm assuming there's a total surplus of solar energy. Are you able to power any of the homes off that in the future? I'm assuming.
No, the homes will have their own solar panels. It depends on the season. So in the winter, we're buying power especially this winter when it rained a lot.
Sure.
But in the summer, we're generating excess power. Overall, we actually still are a net purchaser of power from PG&E, unfortunately. We have a couple of big users, but we would we're still looking. We'll actually probably invest in some more batteries to kind of load shift and things like that. And we're always looking for new technologies and new things to implement in that regard.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are there any new or big events that are coming up if people want to come check it out?
Sure. I think we have around 20 different events this summer. We have some concerts. We have rock concerts. We have reggae concerts. We have Latinx shows, country shows. We have quite a wide variety. We have a Creole, a crayfish and Creole festival actually this Saturday.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so.
And so probably the best way for people to figure out all the events is go to somovillage.com on the events section and look there, and they can see what's going on. And there's a lot of cool events that that are there. But some great concerts over there and stuff like that.
Yeah, hopefully I'll get you guys at the bike ride.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be
in September.
That would be really good.
We actually just went to the Generation Housing Summit.
Oh, you did?
Gosh, probably maybe a month or two ago now.
Yeah.
In SOMO?
Yeah.
Really I was out of town. I didn't make that, but
yeah, it was just a huge need for housing in Sonoma County and the North Bay.
Yeah, and it's not going away. It's a chronic problem and it really needs to be addressed.
Yes, it's going to take a long time to address it. On that note, I think it's so important that communities and municipalities work with local developers because they get really cool projects like this. And this is something that we hit on all the time.
Don't get started on that.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. And just look at this project and look how incredible it is. And I don't want to throw out national builder names there, but you can have someone come in here and just kind of slam in a project that you can find in any community, right?
Yeah.
And here's something that's totally unique. So for those listening, again, when you have a local developer with a project, listen to what they have to say, because often, it's always a superior project over the national builders. But this one is by far, this is the model for the future. That's really what this is. So it's very cool and obviously we've been watching it, but I'll certainly keep a closer eye on it that way. What a really cool project, and for you to have the foresight to see where things need to go that way is just really cool. Is there anything else that you would like people to know about? Anything coming down the road with a project that way? Anything that we haven't covered that way?
Sure. One of the things that my wife is obsessed with these blue zones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so we thought, how can we create a blue zone in SOMO Village? And so we've been, and it's funny, right? There's been different people preaching, kind of utopian communities for years.
Right.
Thomas Lake Harris up in Fountain Grove, and I'm actually going to a place in Mexico on Saturday called Rancho La Puerta. And the founder of Rancho La Puerta, his idea was, hey, if everybody ate grapes every day, then they would live forever, right? Uh-huh. So luckily now there's a lot of science around what, You
have to do a lot of grapes.
Gallons. Probably not going to do it. But, having a tight-knit community, right? I think you brought this up earlier, where people feel safe. They feel like people have their backs, like they're in a place that they feel comfortable with, where they trust their neighbors, where they know their neighbors.
Yes.
They feel they're part of something, right?
Right.
That's probably the most important thing. But also things like good food, right? Good, fresh food, high in nutrients. One of the things, you think, I'm going to go start a farm, right? Mm-hmm. Sounds easy. But the key to a farm, especially a farm that you want to last for 100 years or more, is good soil. And good soil doesn't necessarily come naturally. In our case, we have to build our soil. So we've been building our soil for 5 years, which is not the most exciting thing.
Right. A lot of adobe over there, right?
A lot of adobe, right? So we've been planting cover crops and then cutting the cover crops and letting the grass, sink back into the earth and bringing in compost and things like that. So it's like people are like, well, what's going on with the farm? Well, we're doing this very slow process of building the soil.
Right.
But and what that does is when you build that soil, that soil's absorbing carbon, right?
Right.
Like how are we going to get rid of all this CO2? Well, one of the ways is to build your carbon content of your soil. And then also that's going to lead directly to how healthy the plants are, right? And how much nutritional value. So we want to not only grow fruits and vegetables and different produce, but we want that produce to be really high in nutritional content. So, having that easily accessed, high nutrition value food, providing exercise options for people. So, actually, we have yoga classes, we have Pilates classes, we have fitness classes, we have, we actually built over 2 miles of the SMART path, so bike and pedestrian path, multi-purpose path. So make it easy for people to walk, people that ride their bike. It's actually, SOMO Village is a great place to ride your bike from. So you could go, if you want to ride the flats, you could go out west. You could go out towards, Tamales that way. If you want to go up Sonoma Mountain and keep going and ride the mountains, you could do that. So we're creating a fitness center that's actually going to be kind of that same aesthetic as the co-working, really nice. And kind of combination of functional fitness, but also kind of a spa feel. So we'll have cold plunges, which are very popular,
right,
and have shown great results.
Yes, right.
And then a sauna as well. So you get the hot and the cold and massages, and so work out and then recover. So that is really a kind of, it's not like a big turn, but it's a bit of a tweak. And at the end of the day, I think we all want to live healthier, happier, longer lives.
Right.
Or at least most people do. And so how do you do that? So again, we want to create an environment, a community that fosters that, right? And so that's really is maybe 15 years ago, the focus was on sustainability. And I think in a lot of ways, kind of in California, the marketplace has caught up to where, we wanted to be 15 years ago.
Right.
But on this idea of longevity and this fulfilled, healthy lifestyle, that really hasn't been done, great. And we think we have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, that sounds like it. Sounds like you're right on target with what you've described.
Well, thank you.
Again, incredible project. If anyone wants to learn more about it, somovillage.com.
Yes, please.
Cool. Yep. And then in order to go to the co-workspace, is there any place they can go in person to learn more about it, or the best place still be reach out online?
Yeah, I think Co-work has its own website. SOMO Co-work, I believe, and then, but yeah, you can just drop in as well.
Okay.
Cool. 1500 Valley House Drive. So,
okay.
We get it kind of half and half. A lot of people find us online, and a lot of people just come and stop by.
Sure. Cool. Well, Brad, thank you for joining us. That was awesome.
Well, thank you, Isaiah.
An incredible project, and I think a lot of people are very excited to see it come to terms.
Cool. Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, just to piggyback off that, I'm blown away about the vision and the farm. Like as you were talking through it, I just kept popping back in my head about what a cool project that is. And I mean, talk about promoting community, everything you can do that way. Maybe we have to come back on and talk about that more specifically as it comes to fruition in the future that way, just because I just think that's such a cool project that way. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, I was the same way. I was like, why didn't I think of this farm thing earlier? Because it's really the most important part.
Yeah, I mean, I totally can see what you're saying. There's so much you can do with it. It's absolutely incredible. So, again, that's probably a good future conversation right there.
Cool.
So, on that note, if you've enjoyed this conversation, which hopefully you you have. Please hit like and subscribe so you can see more future content in the future. And Brad, again, thank you very much for joining us today. Isaiah, thank you as always. I'm Sean Payne, owner and founder of LivXplore, and we are out. Thank you, guys.
Welcome to the LivXplore Podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe.